Hello. Hello, good morning. You are welcome to our lecture series on chordates. In today's lecture, we are going to look at the internal anatomy and physiology of the amphibians. Earlier in our lecture on amphibians, we had looked at the introduction to amphibians, and we said they are organisms that are known to live both on land and in water. And these amphibians are characterized by features such as being cold-blooded and having other features such as the metamorphosis from a tadpole state to an adult stage and other features we just looked at, and the fact that they are poikilothermic, they are cold-blooded organisms. So in our lecture today, we want to look at the internal anatomy and physiology of the amphibians. The first internal anatomical feature we want to look at is their skeletal system. The first anatomical feature is the skeleton of the amphibians, skeleton and locomotion of amphibians. Amphibians have a skeletal system that is structurally homologous to other tetrapods, though with a number of variations. The skeletal system of the amphibians is similar to that of other tetrapods. The other tetrapods are the reptiles, the birds, and the mammals. So it is organized, or the various structures in the skeletal system look like that of these other tetrapods, but it has a few variations. The bones of the skeleton of amphibians are hollow and lightweight. They have lightweight bones. They're not as heavy as those of reptiles and birds. The musculoskeletal system is strong to enable it to support the head and the body of the amphibians. The bones are fully ossified, and the vertebrae interlock with each other by means of overlapping processes. The pectoral girdle is supported by muscles. Now, the bones of these reptiles are ossified. They are made stronger. They are made strong. And the vertebrae interlock with each other by means of overlapping processes. The backbone, they get attached to each other by means of overlapping processes. And the pectoral girdle is supported by muscles. The well-developed pelvic girdle is attached to the backbone by a pair of sacral ribs. The ilium slopes forward, and the body is held closer to the ground than is in the case of mammals. The body of the amphibians is usually closer to the ground than it is with the mammals. Now, here is the picture, a figure that's showing the skeletal system of the amphibians. The figure is showing the skeletal system of the amphibians. Now, in the skeletal system of the amphibians, you have similar structures to those of reptiles, birds, and mammals, in that in their hands they have the humerus, but the tibia and fibula, and the radii and ulna are fused together instead of being separate as it is in reptiles, birds, and mammals. The radii and ulna are fused to form what's called the radio-ulnar. Then we also have the metacarpals that are common to reptiles, birds, and mammals, the carpus. Then we also have the phalanges that are common to birds and mammals, are also found in the skeletal system of the amphibians. Now, we had earlier established that the amphibians have 4-digit forelimbs and 5-digit hind limbs. Okay, so the digits in their forelimbs are 4 instead of 5 that's found in mammals. And we also want to see that the ilium is not as it is in reptiles and birds and mammals. Okay, it's separated into 2 bones that are connected to the sacral vertebrae. Then in the feet, just as it is with the mammals, we have the femur, then we have the calcaneum and the talus, okay, which corresponds to the tibia and the fibula. Then we also have tarsus that's found in mammals, the metatarsus, and the phalanges. Now we want to look at the next feature of the amphibians, which is the skeletal system. Amphibians have in their juvenile stage, they have a distinct skeletal system. The juveniles usually have a 2-chambered heart, and the 2-chambered heart is similar to that of the fish. It's similar to that of the fish, in which the blood is pumped through the gills where it is being oxygenated and it flows around the body and back to the heart in a single loop. Just as it is with the fish, the juvenile amphibians have a skeletal system that has 2-chambered hearts, and the circulatory system is just like that of the fish. But in adults, the skeletal system, the circulatory system has an improvement. The adults have a 3-chambered heart, and the 3-chambered heart consists of 2 ventricles and 2 atria and 1 ventricle. That's 2 atria and 1 ventricle. The contraction of the left atrium pumps blood to the ventricle. The contraction of the ventricle then pumps oxygenated blood around the rest of the body of the amphibians through the aorta. Mixing of 2 blood streams is minimized by the anatomy of the chambers. Now I want to look at the structure of the amphibian heart. We had said that the amphibian heart has the adult amphibian heart has 3 chambers. It has 1 ventricle and 2 atria. This is the right atrium, and we have the left atrium. Now, oxygenated blood is pumped from the pulmonary vein to the left atrium, and then through the ventricle to the right atrium, and then to the body through the aorta. When the oxygen is being used up, it returns back to the heart through the posterior vena cava, and then it's pumped to the lungs through the pulmonary artery to receive oxygen. Now, here is a more advanced figure of the circulatory system of the amphibians. Amphibians have a 3-chambered heart and 2 circuits of blood flow, and they are 2: pulmocutaneous and systemic. In reptiles and birds, there are 3 circuits. We have the coronary circuit or coronary circulation. Then we also have the pulmonary circulation and the systemic circulation. But in amphibians, we have 2 circuits: the pulmocutaneous and the systemic. Now here, the blood is pumped from the heart through the pulmonary artery to the lungs to receive oxygen, the lungs as well as the skin capillaries. And then it's returned back to the heart through the atrium, the right atrium, and then to the rest of the body through the artery. Now, as the blood flows, this flow of the blood from the heart to the lung and skin to receive oxygen is referred to as the pulmocutaneous circuit or pulmocutaneous circulation. And then the movement of the blood from the heart to the body, that's oxygenated blood, and back to the heart is called the systemic circulation or the systemic circuit. So they have these two circuits, and take note they have a three-chambered heart instead of having a four-chambered heart, having two atria and one ventricle. The next one to look at is the nervous system of the amphibians, the nervous and sensory systems of the amphibians. The nervous system is basically the same as in other vertebrates, with a central brain, a spinal cord, and nerves throughout the body. Now, the brain and the spinal cord makes up the central nervous system of the amphibians, while the nerves make up the peripheral nervous system. The nerves, which consist of the neurons. And we have three types of neurons. We have the motor neuron, the sensory neuron, and the association neuron. These form the peripheral nervous system, while the brain and the spinal cord forms the central nervous system. The amphibian brain is less well developed than that of reptiles, birds, and mammals, but is similar in morphology and function to that of fish. It is well developed, but its shape, the morphology, and the function is similar to that of fish. It consists of equal parts cerebrum, midbrain, and cerebellum. Various parts of the cerebrum process sensory input, such as smell in the olfactory lobe and sight in the optic lobe, and it is additionally the center of behavior and learning. So the cerebrum is responsible for smell, and in the olfactory lobe, it's used to perceive smell. And this optic lobe of the cerebrum is used for sight. And it is also known to be the center of behavior and learning in amphibians. What about the cerebellum? The cerebellum is the center of the muscular coordination. It coordinates muscular activities, while the medulla oblongata of the amphibians controls some organ functions, including heartbeat and respiration. The medulla oblongata of the amphibians is responsible for the control of heartbeat and respiration. The brain sends signals through the spinal cord and serves to regulate activity in the rest of the body. The pineal body is known to regulate sleep patterns, which is known to regulate sleep patterns in humans, is thought to produce the hormones involved in hibernation and estivation in amphibians. So just as it is in humans, and though this other process of the amphibians is more sophisticated, the pineal body controls sleep patterns in humans, but in amphibians, it is responsible for hibernation and estivation. And what's hibernation? Hibernation or estivation basically refers to the process in which an organism, in response to harsh environmental conditions or adverse environmental conditions, slows down its metabolic rates and gets to a state of dormancy in which the organism doesn't feed, it also do not carry out other physiological activities. It remains in that dormant state, almost looks as if it's even dead, and it remains in that state for the period that the environment is not conducive. So amphibians carry out estivation. Okay, that's why when during the dry season you don't see them, and when it comes to the rainy season, as soon as it rains, you see them coming out from the ground, and you see them croaking all over the place. Tadpoles possess lateral line system like fishes, but this is lost in terrestrial adult amphibians. And the lateral line system, just as it is in fishes, it is responsible for detecting vibration and pressure in water. So the amphibians are like the fishes, particularly the tadpoles that are entirely aquatic. They also have the lateral line system to help them in this. Some caecilians possess electroreceptors that allow them to locate objects around them when submerged in water. They possess electroreceptors, and these receptors are sensory organs that enable them to locate objects that are around them when they are submerged in water. The ears of amphibians are well developed, particularly in frogs, and they form the tympanic membrane. So the tympanic membrane helps to receive auditory signals. There's no external ear, but the large circular eardrum lies on the surface of the head just behind the eye, and it's called the tympanic membrane. And that helps it to receive auditory signals. Now, here is this figure of the nervous system of the amphibian. You have the olfactory lobe, the cerebrum, the optic lobe, the cerebellum, the pituitary gland, as well as the medulla oblongata. Thanks for watching. Now, next lecture, we'll look at the other anatomical features, including the digestive system, the reproductive system, and others in amphibians.